Hey guys, I wanted to give you an update to version 2 of my RB26 powered Z32 1990 300ZX. So I'm going to go underneath the car. It's on my lift here, and I'm going to show you around and what has changed. Compared to the previous one, there's now a Borg-Warner S366 turbo instead of an S300. It has a RawBrokerage ceramic coated manifold, twin tile, 44 millimeter external wastegates. A couple other things that have been done in addition to some cosmetic upgrades is the radiator is now V mounted and the nose panel is actually functional. I don't know if you can see that, but it's actually getting air there, not just from the front. The intercooler is also V mounted. It's using a backdoor intercooler. It's a Garrett core. The radiator is a Howie core. And RawBrokerage in Orlando, Florida, they have made me this removable cross member, which also gets rid of my hood latch. So I now have arrow catch hood latches. In addition to last time, I also have the 99 2000 J-Spec factory xenon headlights, the HIDs. And let's see what else we have here. Also, we have a RawBrokerage handmade aluminum intake manifold and a 100 millimeter, 105 millimeter throttle body, I forget which. We've got ID 1300 injectors. I don't know if you can see that or not. The blue capped ones. 10.5 millimeter feed, or 11 millimeter, I'm sorry. There's also a cooling mod that RawBrokerage does. These three cooling lines here, it evens out the temperature in the head because the RB26 is known for running very hot towards the back of the engine, and so this will even the temperature out as best as possible. Similar to before, there is a pressurized tank here that's one of the, well, that's pretty much the spot you fill the coolant. It's also the high point. The radiator this time does have a breather, so I'm not sure if you can see that or not. But there is a breather there to bleed off any air there, as well as through the cap. It's very simple now. Another thing you might notice is the breather and catch can. It's a different setup now. In order for the catch can to properly work, you actually have to have a vacuum. So it's pulling the vacuum right here, goes all the way along the back over to here to the catch can. The breathers go from the valve cover to the tanks. And finally, last time, if you remember me talking about the fuel lines, they actually on the US Z32, the fuel lines come up from the driver's side frame rail, and the RB26, it's on the other side. So what we did in the previous setup is it ran up to here behind the brake booster and across the downpipe over to this side. It's actually quite dangerous because you're very close to that very hot downpipe. So this time, when we go underneath, I'll show you what we changed, but the fuel lines from the US driver's side are gone now. Everything's on the passenger side, and so we'll show you that. So now, this is where a lot of the magic has happened, is underneath. I still have the custom-made chromoly front sway bar there that, as you can see, it's the lowest spot on the car, and that's by design. So the oil pan or the radiator does not become the lowest spot. And you can see the tile 50 millimeter blow-off valve there along the radiator and the front mount there. The fuse box has been relocated to the fender well here, and this car doesn't really see any rain, so that's why it's not a concern for me to have it relocated there. Have a Cetrab 19-row oil cooler, which is fed through the old intercooler duct on the US passenger side. And everything is very, very close as far as clearance goes. All right, and as I said in the previous video, this is the actual RB26 cast aluminum oil pan, but it's been modified. So the front diff is no longer there. The holes have been TIG welded up, and the axles have been removed. The axle tube as well. Feeding the brakes is there's a brake duct that feeds to the brakes. And I'll get into that in just a second here. Let's go back to fuel lines. Again, they follow all along the passenger side, and it's protected. Thick steel here. And there's a Russell high flow fuel filter. And for the catch cans, these are drains. Just rotate them, everything comes right out as designed. The auxiliary air control valve, it's been relocated, and in the factory intake manifold, it normally sits up underneath in this big aluminum chunk of whatever you want to call it there. And that valve looks brand new because I had to replace it. It has exactly 0 miles on it, and it was part of my problem with cold start. It wouldn't accept a cold start tune. That brings us to the transmission. Now this is a RB26 oil pan, as I said before. The bell housing is an RB26 all-wheel drive bell housing, but starting right here back, it is the Z32 transmission, and everything bolts right up. All I had to do as far as the clutch goes is the slave cylinder. The slave cylinder for the RB26 was on this side, and it was a pull type of a pull type clutch, and the new one runs a Skyline clutch, which is also a non-turbo Z32 clutch. And so all I did is I tapped these 2 holes here for the RB25 GTS-T slave cylinder, and now it works just fine. The clutch line is from Concept Z for Performance, and it's a solid stainless steel braided line all the way from the clutch master cylinder. So it runs from the clutch master cylinder right to the slave cylinder. No fitment problems at all. So anyway, as I said, since it has since it has a Z32 transmission, it uses the factory mounting location, and I have a solid Z-speed shifter there as well, but because of that, everything behind it, drive shaft, I'm still using a 2-piece drive shaft, all the way back is factory. So now we get to the exhaust. As I said, I have 2 screamer pipes, one for each wastegate, and then the exhaust, RawBrokerage, they made me a custom-made downpipe for this application, and it of course has a flex tube there. And then the exhaust is a B&B Billy Boat, 3-inch exhaust all the way back, and they had refabricated. Get some of those awesome welds. They have refabricated this exhaust so it's single exit back to where it splits off. And in the rear, because I get this question asked, this is called a rear ladder bar. There's a Japanese tuner called Dulux, I guess is how you say it. They first came out with this maybe 15 years ago, and this is actually an eBay knockoff because you can't get the real one anymore, and I want to get it repowder coated and looking nice again. But what it's supposed to do is it's supposed to reinforce between the 2 frame rails to prevent further flexing. Finally, you'll have to excuse me, the car, the wheels, everything are filthy right now. The brakes. The wheels are Volk TE37 forged magnesium alloy wheels. The front ones weigh about 12 pounds each in an 18 by 8.5, and the rears are 18 by 9.5, and they weigh about 13 pounds. It's pretty amazing that they're able to do that, but it's achieved by, it's not using powder coat, it's using, in addition to being magnesium, the spokes are hollow, the barrels are thinner, it has Duranuts for lug nuts, everything's extremely light. And that brings us to the brakes. The brakes are, the calipers are Porsche 18Z monoblock 6-piston calipers, and those are from a Cayenne Turbo or a Audi Q7 or the Volkswagen Touareg, and some of them have different calipers. Some of them have 17Z, which is a slightly smaller caliper. Some have this 18Z. You can find them on eBay pretty frequently. They're between $300 and $500 a piece, which is pretty reasonable for a big brake kit. The calipers have adapters which allow it to bolt to the Z32 knuckle. And as far as the rotors, these are Z1 Racing in Georgia. These are their 2-piece. It has aluminum hat and iron rotor, front and rear, and it tries to keep the weight gain to a minimum. I gained about 5 pounds on each corner by this setup versus the old setup, which is unfortunate. But as I said, I tried to keep it to a minimum as far as the weight. Calipers I'm using, the brake pads I'm using are EBC red stuff. This car used to see a lot of track time as far as road racing goes. Those days are pretty much behind me. It's just it's a car to jump in with my wife and just enjoy it now. But at the same time, I have these nice wheels. I wanted to fill out the wheels nicely, and it does just that. I mean, it's such a huge upgrade compared to my old setup, which was just bigger rotors. And the rear brakes are Dodge Challenger 300C, Camaro. There's several American cars that use this rear caliper. It's a 2-piece 4-piston Brembo caliper, and it has an adapter. It's using EBC red stuff pads again, and that Z1 2-piece rotor, slotted only. In the past, I've had just drilled only Stop Tech rotors, and they don't hold up to more than one track day before starting to crack. So that's why I don't do that. On a final note, I just wanted to show you how massive these front brakes are. This is a spare 18Z caliper that I have that I needed to steal the piston out of. Anyway, that's a standard 3/8 inch Craftsman ratchet. Just to give you an idea of how massive it is. It's such a huge caliper, you know. I'm a big guy, you know. I'm 6'7", so it's bigger than my hand. Anyway, there's also a Haltech IQ3 race pack, along with a Platinum Pro standalone ECU for this setup. And RawBrokerage had also made me a custom dash cluster, so I'm able to utilize it basically like stock. And fire it up here, and there it is. So anyway, it also has Kelford 272 cams, and so it gives it a nice idle. On Facebook probably have noticed that I had a daughter about 1.5 years ago, and I came across this little 25-year-old Power Wheels, if you will. It's made by Autobahn International, and it's originally green, and it had some plastic chrome hubcaps, and I've had it wrapped to look similar to my car. And it's a 6-volt Power Wheels. It's not very fast. It's one-wheel drive, but that's not what's important. What's important is that my daughter enjoys it, and she loves riding around in it. We went as far as having 3D printed hubcaps made for it with the little decals to match my wheels. Pretty amazing. There was a lot of time and effort that went into this with the help of several people. Mike Duckering, Tony Ferraro, Josh Buckley. There's several decal shops that helped. Sign Effects, Jones Effects Graphics. There's a lot of people that really made this possible. And it's pretty amazing. I'm very impressed with how it turned out. Headlights light up, and has 2 foot pedals, and there's a forward and reverse, and there's a charger for it. The battery sits under the hood, and the motor is in the back, just one-wheel drive. And the rear of it, I don't know how well you can see that, but it's actually a picture of my taillights, and it was printed on vinyl and put on there. So anyway, you can see over the past several years there's been a lot of blood, sweat, tears, and money that's been put into this to make this come to fruition. It really is an amazing swap, and it's unique. There's not a whole lot of people out there that have this swap for obvious reasons. I mean, there's a lot of custom work that goes into it, and you know, I hope you appreciate it, and subscribe to my videos. I'll be posting more here later. Now that I've got all the kinks worked out, I've got a set of new tires coming in because these tires are dry rotten from the car sitting so long. And so I'm going to get those replaced, and I'll get it on the road, and we'll get some videos for you. So enjoy. Thanks for watching.